Thank you and good morning. Good morning. It is a wonderful honor for me to be here with you in Estonia at the Tallinn Digital Summit. Special thank you to the Prime Minister for hosting me and the President and to all of my distinguished guests here this morning. I think it's very befitting that we have this discussion this morning at the Tallinn Creative Hub, a physical symbol of Estonia's transformation from a Soviet republic to a digital pioneer in only 30 years. I told my teenage children that I was coming to Estonia. I wasn't sure what their reaction would be. And they said, that's the place with all the cool startups. So in only 30 years, I think you have so much to be proud of. I will confess that I have admired Estonia for many years. Prior to being the Secretary of Commerce, I was the governor of a state in America called Rhode Island. Rhode Island is a state of about 1 million people, the same size, roughly, as Estonia. And at that time, for years, I studied Estonia's digital transformation and their leadership in e-government. And I often admired the way that Estonia built upon your size and cohesion to move forward with such innovation. And so for me, it is an honor to be here today for my first time. I will say your accomplishments here in Estonia are significant, ranking first in Europe for employee participation and competitiveness, and third in terms of the number of startups per capita. As the Prime Minister so eloquently said, it isn't size, it's your ability to innovate. Today, this morning, I'd like to discuss how we can replicate Estonia's digital transformation globally, tapping into the full benefits of the 21st century economy by strengthening our digital connectivity and building upon our shared values and common interests. Our esteemed hosts know the importance of this agenda all too well. As I said, Estonia has harnessed the benefits of connectivity to serve your citizens better than anyone with one of the world's most advanced e-government systems. Through your e-residency program, Estonia has made almost all of your government services accessible to citizens and residents online 24/7, and nearly all interactions between citizens and the state are virtual, a feat that really none of us have been able to accomplish. This digital infrastructure proved critical during this pandemic. Estonia's citizens maintain access to vital services, and as a result, your economy was able to recover quite quickly. In fact, Estonia's recovery was so strong that the country posted the strongest GDP growth in the EU for the first quarter. Now, for the rest of us, for all of us, the COVID pandemic exposed just how essential connectivity is to our daily lives, in all facets of our life, from manufacturing to education to healthcare. Over the past 18 months, many businesses, small and large, have moved operations online. Schools have switched overnight to remote learning, all highlighting how important digital connectivity is. Unfortunately, for too many Americans, indeed for too many people around the world, lack of affordable internet meant that students living in communities that were underserved could not attend classes, could not receive their education. Families had to rely on expensive cellular data via their mobile phones to get online. And many of those stories were heartbreaking. Children having to drive to a nearby convenience store or fast food chain to sit in the parking lot to rely upon that internet to take their classes, often in the back seat of their family's car. Shops and restaurants that didn't have an online presence had to adjust immediately. And even more devastatingly, many just went out of business. In fact, the smallest businesses went out of business because they weren't able to compete in the digital world. I'm very pleased to say that in order to address this need, we in America recently passed an infrastructure package which will invest $65 billion into America's connectivity, which is enough money to bring high-speed, affordable broadband to every single American. And I will comment also that this package was passed on a bipartisan basis, which should give all of us hope. The need for this investment, however, is not isolated to the United States. Nearly 3.7 billion people around the world lack access to broadband. Affordable access to high-speed broadband is vital to the growth of all of our economies. To that end, I would like to emphasize today that President Biden is committed to working with all of you, our like-minded partners, to close this digital divide at home in the United States and abroad. Now, one way that we can do this is by supporting institutions on the front lines of increasing broadband connectivity, like the International Telecommunications Union. ITU's development sector has been doing fantastic work in this space under the direction of Doreen Bogdan-Martin, who is here with us this morning. And I want to make clear to all of you this morning that the United States strongly supports her candidacy for Secretary General of the ITU to carry out this important work going forward. Having said all of that, lack of access to broadband is just one part of the problem. The creativity and skills that underpin Estonia's transformation into a global tech powerhouse are exactly what we all need to address the dangerous infrastructure investment gap facing low and middle income economies. The Prime Minister and I had the opportunity to discuss this at length at dinner last night and to share our common approach to this issue. At President Biden's direction, we are leading the effort, along with our G7 partners and our partners in the EU, to close this gap across a range of areas, including healthcare and digital technology, through the Build Back Better World Partnership, B3W. The United States is mobilizing its development finance tools and working with our partners to leverage private sector capital and make investments that empower low and middle income countries to participate in the modern economy. We recognize how vital it is to invest in other countries to help develop digital and traditional infrastructure. And we want to work together to ensure that our efforts are fully aligned with the specific needs and interests of each individual country, needs of which are different from one another. Additionally, I also want to comment on the Blue Dot Network, which has already been commented on by the two prior speakers. The Blue Dot Network's certification mechanism for quality infrastructure projects will be a key part of that agenda. However, full digital connectivity means more than addressing the infrastructure challenges, however serious they are. It means recognizing that today's innovation depends vitally on data flows. Governments need cross-border data for trade and commercial relationships. We need cross-border data flows for financial market stability, for public health, for advancement of innovation, for advancement of clinical trials, for criminal investigations, and very importantly, for national security. And we also need businesses to bring value to their customers. These businesses need information about their customers, real-time information about their operations on the ground in markets around the world. Free flow of data with protection of privacy is what keeps our businesses and our economies competitive. Citizens also benefit from and rely upon data flows, and they deserve to be able to trust that their information is handled safely, securely, and lawfully. And I hope that we can all agree that requirements to keep data localized in country hurt all of our businesses, all of our economies, and all of our citizens. For example, when global banks don't have access to their data from around the world, they are less able to spot malicious trends and fraudulent activity. That leaves local banks and domestic financial systems vulnerable to very real, and quite frankly, very expensive threats and attacks. Data localization not only limits the ability of companies to do business overseas and impose significant operational cost, but ultimately doesn't provide meaningful data protection or privacy. The global economy urgently needs an international framework that is, at the same time, interoperable and scalable. That means we have to work together to bridge our regulatory differences, not to deny them, but to bridge them, through multilateral cooperation and summits just like this one, rather than relying upon unilateral action. Forums just like this help foster trust between our governments, businesses, and citizens. And I'd like to say again just how honored and pleased I am to be here on behalf of the United States government. We all have different perspectives about the very best approach to address our connectivity challenges and cross-border data flows. And that's good, that's okay. We need to learn from each other. But we must commit ourselves to holding on to what we share in common, which vastly overshadows our differences. Fundamentally, we democratic countries with shared values share and hold dear the same values, and what connects us is far greater than our differences. We all agree and recognize that data flows are essential to our economies. We all agree that connectivity drives innovation, and that innovation is critical to our future security and prosperity. We all hold privacy as a core value, and we all value data protection. Bridging the gaps between our data protection systems requires us to build on these commonalities and to do that together. A critical step toward interoperability is through the OECD initiative on trusted government access to personal data held by the private sector. And we highly commend the OECD and Secretary General Corman's leadership on this vital initiative and urge our partners to work together with us to finalize a concrete outcome. Joint efforts like these among like-minded partners lay the foundation for enhanced interoperability that will benefit all of our economies. Now, I want to be clear about something. We don't need to have the same systems. In fact, we don't have the same systems of government necessarily. We don't have to have identical privacy laws in order to be interoperable with one another. We just need to develop principles and frameworks that allow our approaches to complement and not contradict one another, and to achieve the results that we need that are consistent with our shared values. For example, the United States fully backs the APEC cross-border privacy rules system, or the CBPR, because it facilitates consistent requirements across jurisdictions with different legal requirements. This system ensures that data is shared responsibly and securely, and it achieves all of that while at the same time respecting national sovereignty and the differences between domestic privacy laws. This is what interoperability is all about, and it must be at the center of our efforts for a trusted connectivity. We must together build a shared digital future. As we work toward our shared goal of interoperability, we also must continue addressing other pressing digital issues, like a new regime for transatlantic data transfers. We share a deep commitment to individual privacy on both sides of the Atlantic. And I am confident and optimistic that by working together alongside of the European Union, we will reach a durable resolution on an enhanced privacy shield framework that benefits all of us. I'll conclude with this. I've spoken this morning about the benefits of digital connectivity, and we've heard that from the other speakers. The benefits for our citizens, for our economies, for our businesses, for our continued prosperity. But this is really about so much more than economics. At the center of our cooperation are our shared democratic values, including individual liberty, transparency, a transparent government, and yes, privacy. And we should look at interoperability between our systems as an outgrowth of these shared values. We can't allow our differences to hold us back because we have far too much to achieve together in the months and years ahead. Now more than ever, we have to double down on our partnerships, our collaboration, and our shared values. As the Prime Minister so eloquently said, not all countries in the world share these values. The stakes have never been higher for our like-minded democracies to come together to forge consensus on the basis of these shared values. And I pledge to you today that the United States looks forward to strengthening these partnerships with all of you to expand our global digital connectivity and data flows so that all of our citizens can prosper and fully participate in the 21st century global economy. So thank you for inviting me, and congratulations on a fantastic summit.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Madam Secretary, thank you. Before you go, first of all, thank you for your kind words about Estonia. I think all the Estonians in the audience are humbled, and frankly, for being so direct about what we need to do in terms of collaboration on issues like data flows. Before you go, we do have a question for you, too, from President Kaljulaid.
Secretary Raimondo, thank you. We very rarely hear people speaking emotionally about deeply technical issues, and I would really like to thank you for that particularly. And also I would like to remind our audience that representing United States of America, you come from a democracy which has given us GPS system. GPS system is upheld by a democracy. I tested my younger relatives back home as well. What do they think it is? And they all thought it is a natural resource. They didn't realize it's a technical system which we can always rely upon to find our way on the roads and in the towns, simply because a democracy will never withhold the service to achieve its political objectives. So thank you and congratulations on that. And based on that, if I now come to the Building Back Better World or Blue Dot network initiatives, don't you think we really need to build and maybe start here in Tallinn, where we have you, we have Secretary General Coleman, we have also President Charles Michel, to build the consensus that indeed we do not need a single standard, we do not need monopolies or oligopolies. But what we do need is a consensus that trusted connectivity will have all the positive characteristics of the GPS. It is much more complex because we are not relying on a single service provider. And in the free world, we are also not relying on a public service provider in this trusted connectivity build-up. But I think we need to agree and declare that there has to be a consensus which is akin Blue dot network. Blue dot could be actually a really good physical symbol of all this so that we could go and check with our mobile phones. This grid, this railway is indeed built this way that technology does what it is meant to do and doesn't do what we don't know it might. So do you think we need such kind of a broad consensus to recognize that it will not be a single standard, but indeed a consensus, which maybe we could call a Tallinn consensus? Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I will leave it to all of us to name what it might be. But I do agree with you. I agree fully with you. I think there, as I tried to convey in my comments, there is no one-size-fits-all approach, and we have to respect the differences in our governments, in our systems of governments, in our court systems. However, building a consensus, having frameworks, having certifications based upon our shared values, I think will increase the flow of capital into infrastructure, which is so necessary, as well as allow us to together write the rules of the road for emerging technology, which is vital. Because if we democratic countries aren't writing the rules of the road, we know that autocratic countries will be. And that's what I hope we all stay focused on as we develop that consensus. Rather than bickering among ourselves as to our differences, I think we need to keep our eye on that prize to make sure that the consensus is broadly held on the basis of our shared values. Thank you.
Thank you.